Now, if you've been around the fitness space for a decent amount of time, you might have heard the term deload and wondered what it is. Now, in this video, what I'm going to cover is deloads, D-volumes and the difference between the two, and then also the option of taking total rest and how to know when to take some. So, throughout training, it's important to understand that as you adapt, as you lift heavier, as you challenge yourself more and more over time in a progressive manner, you accumulate fatigue. Accumulation of fatigue is a natural part of training. And it's actually a really good sign in some cases that you are just progressing, because as your body receives feedback that is increasingly stressful in order to stimulate adaptation or give your body essentially a reason to coordinate adaptations, that increase in stress and increase in feedback, that causes fatigue. So again, there's an accumulation of fatigue as you train. Is this true for everybody? I would argue that a beginner who's not very strong and doesn't know how to train hard or as hard as they will in the future, they are not inducing as much fatigue nearly as someone who's very advanced, knows how to train, well executed lifts across the board, trains hard, lifts heavy. That person, the more advanced person, will be causing a lot more fatigue. So it's not the same rule for everybody. There's different contexts that we need to understand, but the fundamental principle that I need you to understand going forwards is as you adapt, as you train, as you progress, you accumulate fatigue. Now, with an accumulation of fatigue as you progress, there is also the washing away of fatigue, because your body is good at dissipating fatigue. So there's a rate of fatigue accumulation, and then also a simultaneous rate in which your body is able to wash off said fatigue. Now, going back to my example, when you have a beginner who's not very strong and they don't train very hard because they're a beginner and they probably don't need to, they're not really accumulating that much fatigue. It's happening very slowly, but it's hardly happening at all. Now, their rate in which their body is washing it off might just be faster than their rate in which they can actually induce the fatigue. They might be washing off the fatigue faster than they can even cause it. So therefore, a beginner might never need a period of pulling back. They might never need a period of deloading, devolumes, or total rest. We take someone who's a bit more advanced, they're lifting a bit heavier, they're training a bit harder. It's totally normal that every once in a while they'll reach a point where all of their exercises seem to have stalled. They don't feel very good in the gym, they don't feel very explosive, they don't feel as strong as usual. They can find that their mood has shaken, they can also find their motivation has dipped. All of these symptoms can be symptoms that fatigue is just a little bit too high. So if you take an individual, not the beginner, someone who's a bit more advanced, who is accumulating fatigue at a considerable rate, maybe faster than your body's ability to wash it off, that means the fatigue every once in a while, if you continue on this trend, will accumulate to the point where we need to put something in place in order to give your body a chance to catch up in which it can wash away the fatigue. So here comes the protocol of deloads, devolumes, or total rest. Now, the timeline in which it takes a person to accumulate fatigue to the point where they might require one of these things, this is very person dependent. It's very person dependent depending on how strong somebody is, potentially how old somebody is, how often they train, the exercises that they do, how much they're actually progressing, things like this. Everybody has a different rate of fatigue accumulation essentially. So every once in a while, the signs that you might need to look out for, or at least acknowledge if they do happen, is signs like you've been feeling really good in the gym, and then all of a sudden you walk in and you thought you felt good, but you just can't lift the weights you thought you could, or you're achieving less reps than you were previously achieving the week before. Now couple this with potentially a dip in motivation that's unexplained, a dip in mood that's again unexplained, and a number of other factors. You can absolutely recognize the signs when these things happen, and it's good to understand that it might not be you just falling off the wagon. Your body might have just accumulated enough fatigue that you need to put something intelligent in place to wash it off. So the options you have, if this is you have the option of a deload, a devolume, and total rest. So a deload is when you go to the gym and you bring the weights that you're lifting down for a period of time. This could be 4 days, it could be a week. It depends on how essentially beaten up you are. So someone more advanced might need a week. Someone less advanced might only need 4 days. But a deload is a specific period of time in which you are bringing the weights that you're lifting down on purpose so that you can reduce the challenge, so that your body essentially gets some active rest. It has a chance to wash off said fatigue, we're essentially spending a period of time not inducing an increase in fatigue and allowing your body to catch up. That is a deload. We are deloading. We're bringing the weight down for a specified period of time. Now, a devolume, on the other hand, as the name might suggest, is a period of time in which you are reducing the workload per session. Now, this could be, you used to do 7 exercises, and for a few days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, however many days you might need, you're only going to do 4 exercises. This would be an example of a devolume. You are reducing the volume in which you do. This works just as well, but you might have a preference one over the other. I won't make the argument in this video for one being better than the other. It really just comes down to preference. So those are 2 options. Now, the third and final option is actually just taking some rest. And again, this is completely preferential. There is argument that active rest is more effective. In fact, not argument, but evidence, and it seems like it's a certain thing. So active recovery is 9 times out of 10 suggested in most cases, and it will be a little bit more effective for washing off fatigue. But you have the option of taking total rest as well, which is a very good option. Say, for example, if an individual has accumulated a lot of fatigue, they need a period of rest, but they also have some funny feelings in their joints and some pains here and there, and they might just need a period of time in which they don't have to dedicate the time to turning up to the gym, and they can spend a little bit more time rehabbing their body, focusing on their mobility, feeling good, and just reducing the pressure or the time constraints of actually just turning up to the gym. So there's plenty of valid reasons that somebody would take total rest over choosing to do a deload or a devolume, which are both forms of active recovery, essentially to help your body wash off fatigue. All 3 will wash off fatigue, but the forms of active recovery, the deload and the devolume, they will actually potentiate faster recovery, to which the percentage is a little bit different person to person, but it will marginally make somebody recover a little bit better if they do some active recovery. And then that also might be useful in the context of a fat loss phase where they are still going to the gym and burning some calories. Admittedly, not too many, but it still is a factor. So there might be contexts in which one is better than the other that is outside of preference. But those essentially are your options. You either specify a period of time where you're going to target some active recovery to wash off the fatigue, or you're just going to rest. Now, this might happen every 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. It's really person dependent. So those are the differences between deloads, devolumes, and then also total rest. And the argument for all 3, in which really it's preferential, and there's some context where you can immediately recognize variables that make the argument for you. But ultimately, you want to just acknowledge that throughout your training, if you're progressing really well and you're training really hard, and you're at a stage where you're maybe a little bit more advanced, just watch out for the symptoms, the signs, and have a little bit of a protocol in place, know when to apply it, and it should keep you on the path of moving forwards and ultimately not just thinking that you've fallen off track for whatever reason. So, hope that makes sense. Any questions, drop me a message, and I'll chat to you in the next one.